There was a time when you were the star of every room. Not because you demanded it, but because you always seemed to know the answer before the question was even done. People watched you with admiration. Adults leaned in when you spoke. Teachers called on you first. You became the one they all counted on. You didn't ask for that spotlight. It just followed you. And at first it felt warm, affirming, even magical. Like you were special in a way the world rarely sees. But here's what no one warned you about: that same light that once bathed you in praise can later blind you. And now, years later, as you scroll in silence wondering where the magic went, there's a heaviness you can't quite name. You used to be the kid with the answers. Now you can't even answer the question, what am I doing with my life? There's a quiet ache in that shift. Not a fall, but a drifting. Not a failure, but a fog. And you're not alone. There are thousands, maybe millions, walking through the world with the same invisible grief, once praised for their potential, now struggling to feel purposeful. How can someone once so full of brightness feel so dim inside? It's not that you stopped being capable. It's that you were never taught how to be whole, only how to be impressive. From such a young age, your worth became a currency traded in test scores, quick answers, witty remarks. You learned how to earn love, not how to receive it. You learned how to impress people, but not how to belong. And now, in a world that doesn't hand out gold stars for surviving, you feel unmeasured, unseen, adrift in a system that rewards consistency, not spark. It's a strange kind of grief, mourning the version of you that always knew what to say, while quietly realizing you don't know how to ask for help now that you need it most. This is not the story people tell, but it's the truth many live. And tonight, if this is you, just know you are not lost. You are unraveling, and sometimes that's the only way to come home to yourself. What if the praise wasn't a blessing, but a quiet kind of burden? What if all those "you're so smart" and "you're going to do great things" were actually bricks slowly building a house you no longer want to live in? When they told you how special you were, it felt like love. But it was conditional love, the kind you had to earn. And when love comes with strings, you learn quickly how to stay worthy of it. You became the performer, the achiever, the one who didn't make mistakes, the one who never needed help. Because asking for help, that meant weakness. And weakness meant maybe you were never that gifted after all. It starts small. You avoid the subjects where you might not shine. You stick to what you know you're good at. You become excellent in a cage where perfection is a prison and approval is your oxygen. No one taught you how to fail safely, how to fall without shame, how to try something new and be bad at it and still be worthy of love. Instead, you were taught performance, rewarded for polish, and somewhere along the way, you mistook being loved for being impressive. And here's the cruel twist: you started hiding the parts of you that didn't fit that image. The parts that were confused, messy, unfinished, human. You tucked them behind a perfect smile, a clever answer, a resume full of achievements that said, "I matter." But at night, when the lights are off and no one's asking you to prove yourself, you feel it, don't you? That hollow ache, like something was traded for all the applause. And now you can't remember the sound of your own voice before the world told you who you had to be. Praise, when tied to performance, becomes a silent thief. It steals your right to be ordinary, to stumble, to be soft, to be real. But here's what no one told you. Your worth was never supposed to be earned. It was supposed to be remembered. And it's not too late to remember it now. You spent years mastering the rules, the formulas, the expectations. You knew how to ace the test, how to win the praise, how to become everything they said you were meant to be. But now, there's no test. No one handing out gold stars for surviving the day. No one watching closely, waiting to applaud your next accomplishment. And without that audience, a question echoes, who are you, when there's nothing left to prove? It's unsettling, isn't it? You used to be the gifted one. Now you're just scrolling, second-guessing your next move, starting things you don't finish, dreaming of potential you can't seem to reach. It's not because you're lazy. It's because your identity was built on comparison, on structure, on praise. And when that scaffolding fell away, no one taught you how to build from within. You were trained to achieve, not to anchor, to impress, not to introspect, to outperform, but not to understand yourself. And so now, in the quiet space of adulthood, where success isn't measured by grades, but by peace, purpose, and presence, you feel adrift. The irony is cruel. You were always the one who had it together. But now, you can't even tell if what you're chasing is something you want or just something you were conditioned to want. You're brilliant, but untethered, capable, but unmotivated. You look at others people you once outshined and wonder how they seem to be moving forward while you stay stuck inside your head. But here's the truth. They learned how to be consistent, how to build without applause, how to keep going when no one was watching. Not because they were more talented, but because they were allowed to grow without needing to be exceptional. You were exceptional, but you were never taught how to be enough. And now, that's your work, not to become someone new, but to discover who's been waiting beneath the performance all along. You say you're just trying to do your best. You call it high standards, excellence, ambition. But beneath all of that polish lives a very old fear. What if I'm not as special as they once believed? Perfectionism doesn't grow in confidence. It grows in shame. The kind you don't speak aloud. The kind that says, if I'm not perfect, I'll be forgotten. So you plan. You pause. You prepare endlessly. But when it comes time to act, to create, to commit, to begin, you hesitate. Because the moment you try is the moment you risk proving to yourself that maybe you're not good enough after all. You see failure hits differently when you were the kid who was never supposed to fail. You weren't just smart. You were the smart one. You weren't just capable. You were the one who would make it. And now, every imperfect draft, every misstep, every pause feels like a betrayal. Not of the world's expectations, but of your own identity. This is why you stall. Not because you don't care, but because you care so much it paralyzes you. You don't procrastinate out of laziness. You do it to protect the illusion. Because as long as the dream stays in your head, it can still be perfect, still untouched, still safe. But perfection is a myth, and trying to live inside it is like trying to breathe in a vacuum. There's no air there, just pressure. And over time, that pressure becomes silence. You stop sharing your ideas. You stop showing your process. You only present the final product, polished, practiced, untouchable. But in doing so, you rob yourself of the messiness that makes life real. The stumbles, the rewrites, the softness of starting again, imperfect but alive. So let me ask you gently, when did doing it well enough stop being enough? When did effort stop mattering more than image? And what would happen if you let go of being impressive and let yourself be real? You might feel like you're falling, but maybe you're just finally letting the armor go. You were the smart one, so they spoke to you like an adult. They leaned on you like a crutch. They gave you logic when you needed love. They gave you responsibility when you were still learning how to carry your own heart. And because you were so good with words, they assumed you didn't need space to feel. But being articulate doesn't mean being emotionally equipped. And no one, not a single person, stopped to ask, "Are you okay carrying this much?" So you learned to hide the tremble in your voice. You learned to answer every question, even the ones that hurt. You learned how to wipe your tears before anyone saw them, because that's what was expected of you. To be composed, to be wise, to be unshakable. But the truth is, you were just a child, a brilliant one, yes, but still a child who needed softness more than structure, who needed to fall apart safely before learning how to hold it all together. You weren't given that space. And so your emotions went underground, not gone, never gone, just hidden beneath the armor of performance logic control. But emotions are patient. They wait. And eventually, they resurface as burnout, as anxiety, as numbness that settles in your bones when you can't remember the last time you cried without apologizing for it. You became an expert at analyzing your pain, but you forgot how to feel it. You became someone others leaned on, but never learned how to lean back. And now, love feels foreign. Not because it's not around, but because your body still doesn't believe it's safe to receive it. Because deep down, a voice still whispers, "If I'm not useful, will they still stay?" No one taught you how to feel, only how to function. But it's not too late. You are not too old or too broken to learn what softness feels like, what safety tastes like, what it means to cry without shame. You've held the world for too long. Maybe it's time you learn how to hold yourself. You've worn it for so long you don't even notice it anymore, the armor. It's quiet, invisible to most, made of polite smiles, thoughtful advice, steady hands, and a reputation for being the strong one. You became the one people confide in, the one who always knows what to say, the one who holds the room together when everything else is falling apart. But who holds you? Who sees the weight you carry when the lights are off and the world finally stops asking? You see, when your worth is tied to being dependable, you forget how to need. When your identity is built on being composed, you stop letting yourself feel disoriented even when everything inside you is spinning. You say you're fine because it's easier than explaining a pain you don't fully understand. You offer others a shoulder while your own knees are trembling beneath the weight of your silence. And the people around you, they believe you're okay because you make it look easy, because you never ask for more than you give, because you're so good at pretending, you started to believe it too. But here's the thing, you can't keep giving from an empty well. You can't keep being the answer while avoiding your own questions. Eventually, the cracks show. Not loudly, but quietly, in the way your laugh starts to sound hollow, in the way your rest never really feels restful, in the way you begin to resent the very people you love, not because they're asking too much, but because you've forgotten how to ask for anything at all. This armor was built out of necessity. It kept you safe. It kept you admired. But it also kept you distant from others and from yourself. So let me ask you something you may not have heard in a long time. What do you need? Not what do you offer. Not what do you fix. Not what do you explain away. But what do you need to feel held, to feel seen, to feel like you're allowed to fall apart and still be loved? The armor helped you survive. But it's okay to outgrow survival. You don't have to be the strong one anymore. You just have to be the real one. And that too is a kind of strength the world desperately needs. You feel everything more than most. You notice the change in someone's tone before they say a word. You sense the tension in a room before anyone acknowledges it. You cry at songs no one else hears deeply. You care, even when it hurts. And somewhere along the way, someone called that too much, too emotional, too dramatic, too sensitive, as if feeling deeply was a defect, something to fix something, to manage something to silence. So you learn to override it, to shrink your reactions, to hold in your tears until you were alone, to explain your emotions with logic as if feelings needed justifications to be real. But the truth is, you weren't too much. They just weren't ready for your depth. You see, in a world obsessed with speed and surface sensitivity is inconvenient. It slows things down. It asks questions that pierce too deep. It reveals truths people spend lifetimes avoiding. So instead of honoring your sensitivity, you buried it beneath productivity. You masked it with strength. You tried to become who they applauded, not who you really were. But you feel the cost now, don't you? In the way your joy feels muted. In the way your body tightens every time your emotions rise. In the way connection feels shallow because you're always holding some part of yourself back. But what if your sensitivity was never a weakness? What if it was your compass? What if it was the part of you most in tune with beauty, with truth, with love? They taught you to doubt it, to dull it. But that sensitivity, that deep vibrating presence inside you isn't your flaw. It's your power. The world doesn't need more numbness. It needs people who stay soft in a world that hardens everything. So maybe it's time to stop apologizing for what was always sacred. Your heart isn't wrong. It's just been waiting to be heard again. There comes a moment when the applause fades, when no one's watching, no one's grading, no one's waiting to be impressed. And in that silence, a question rises. What am I really doing this for? For years, your life ran on momentum, chasing achievements, stacking accolades, becoming the person everyone expected. But now, the finish lines are blurry. The praise is quiet. And the voice inside the one you silenced for so long is starting to ask for more. Not more success, more meaning. You start to notice that ticking off goals doesn't feel as fulfilling as you thought it would. You hit a milestone, and instead of pride, you feel nothing, or worse, emptiness. That's when you realize you were never taught how to want something for yourself, only how to pursue what would make others proud. You know how to climb ladders, but not how to ask, is this ladder even leaning on the right wall? This is the moment of quiet crisis, not because you failed, but because you finally paused long enough to feel the hollowness beneath the performance. But this pause, as painful as it is not your downfall. It's your doorway. Because meaning can't be manufactured, it has to be uncovered. And it doesn't look like what you thought. It's not always grand or glamorous. Sometimes it's simple. It's showing up for something that stirs your heart. It's making something that no one claps for, but feels right in your chest. It's resting without guilt. It's choosing love over approval. It's living aligned with your truth, not with someone else's expectations. So, let me ask you gently, if you stop performing, what would you create? If no one was watching, what would you pursue? And if you weren't trying to prove your worth, how would your life begin to feel? The answers might not come easily, but they're inside you, beneath the layers of applause, beneath the scripts you were handed, beneath the need to be anything but exactly who you are. You don't need more trophies. You need more truth. And it's waiting for you the moment you stop running from stillness and start listening. What if this is the moment? Not the one where you finally figure it out, but the one where you stop trying so hard to. What if healing doesn't look like some epic reinvention, but like softening, like removing the mask, like letting yourself want something, even if you're not perfect at it yet? You've spent so long being the smart one, the strong one, the composed one, but maybe the version of you that's most powerful is the one that's most human, the one who gets it wrong sometimes, but still shows up, the one who doesn't have all the answers, but keeps asking better questions, the one who doesn't chase identity, but allows it to unfold moment by moment. You don't have to earn rest. You don't have to deserve joy. You don't need permission to feel at home in your own skin. Let that be the beginning. Let yourself create not to impress, but because something inside you wants to come alive. Let yourself feel not to analyze, but because emotion is how your soul speaks. Let yourself connect, not to be validated, but to be seen. You were never here to be perfect. You were never here to fit the image. You were here to feel, to stretch, to break and rebuild, to laugh from your belly, to cry without shame, to live fully, imperfectly, honestly. This isn't the end of your story. It's the part where you reclaim the pen. So write, not for them, not for the past, not for the applause. Write for the child inside you who never got to speak freely, who always had to know, who always had to shine. Tell that child you don't have to prove anything anymore. You are allowed to be, to breathe, to become, and maybe that's the real gift you were always meant to give the world. Not your perfection, not your intelligence, but your presence, your truth, your whole, untidy, extraordinary humanity. So go ahead, begin again. And this time, do it for you.